a lot of people have really hit the nail right on the head of our current era of grind hard is like Ethan working on something very serious and time consuming. And then Will and I just shrekking about with like these quick, crazy things that are probably going to like be really cool for a couple seconds and then blow up because the next two things we want to turbo are fully a Swindle Brothers project. Like, you don't want anything to do with them, and that's fine.
Which is why you need to build a new shop so that you can have a place to store all these projects because they pile up at an alarming rate.
Yeah, that is.
They do get done pretty quickly.
Yeah, like this new one, like we'll basically bust it out in a week. And it's like, that takes up a lot of room. It's a pretty big little thing. I mean, it takes up as much room as the kernel.
That's a daily commuter, though. That could be Steven's daily commuter.
No.
Oh.
Yeah. 2 seats, man. 2 steering wheels.
Yep, pretty nice.
2 brakes. You guys are going to love this video. And when Will and I picked it up, the craziest thing happened because the Ute has been sitting in the snow for a while. Hadn't been used.
Functioning.
So we kind of brought it down.
For anyone listening who maybe hasn't followed along for that long, the Ute is a 96, 95 BMW
323.
Yeah.
Coupe.
Coupe, that's the word I was looking for. BMW Coupe that we chopped the back off of and turned it into a pickup truck many years ago. Anyway, just in case anybody didn't have that image in their head before this story continues.
And Will drives like a normal car that you can't fit a project in. And then
Drives a
the
Honda
Tesla
Civic.
doesn't have the range to pick up things. So, you know,
we had
Ethan's
only the Ute.
out and about with his truck. There's no way to get projects. So we brought in the Ute, threw in a new battery. We went to Harbor Freight, bought all the tools we need to replace an axle because every single time we've driven that thing, we've had to replace an axle. And we're like, if this happens far away and Ethan's not here with a truck, we're so screwed. So we bought all the tools and we just go off trundling into the freezing cold snow. It has no heater, so we had to have the windows down to like defrost.
Well, I told you we had to have the windows down, and then it turns out we did not have to have them down.
We were freezing cold wearing gloves. Like we had so many layers. We're just freezing, shivering, driving this car. And it's so loud and it doesn't have sway bars and everything is falling apart. And we think that there's no bushings in the rear subframe. Every time you shift or go around a corner, the entire diff sounds like it's about to bang out of the subframe.
Honestly, Will probably just forgot the bolts again. Like
that's what I told him, and he said, "No, the bolts are there." And I was like, "We'll see."
No, we remember. I looked under there, and the bolts were in the 2 ones that you'll doink like that. They're in there.
There's a lot of other bolts in there.
They're in there.
The first time Will replaced that.
I did. The first time. But that sounds like that's like whop, 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 like really hard.
That's what this sounds like.
This one's only on shift. It feels like the drive shaft itself is like hitting something. Like,
I mean, it could be. There's who knows?
So it's an adventure and a half.
It's an adventure.
Going to pick up this machine. Like every foot is a struggle.
But we got pretty confident on the way over. We were like, yeah, it's not going to break. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it was.
And it did the trick. We got it. We drifted around this guy's neighborhood. And before we paid him, he seemed a little uncomfortable about the situation. I was like, "Oh, can we drive it around?" And he was like, "Yeah." And then Will just takes off. Like we go many blocks away from this man's house and we're drifting in intersections. And Will gets to this like adrenaline, like kind of
Adrenaline fog.
He just doesn't think.
This is true.
I don't know what it is. Like, it's like the second you give this man, this is like a, 6 horsepower situation. We're sitting in there. He's driving me around. I'm passenger because I was filming. And he's just yoinking around, drifting, like not paying attention. There's like traffic. And he's like, oh, yeah, like drift into this intersection right through a stop sign. And like it could drift because
it could drift.
Raining.
It was not a live road. We were in a neighborhood.
But still, he almost ran into 2 trucks.
There was 2 trucks, but I had it fully under control. I saw them, and I knew exactly where they were. That thing's a nice precision drifter machine.
But that's like, I don't know. I think you get so involved with just having as much fun as possible in the moment, which is great. It's like when children play, I think we're both the same way. Like logic out the window, but your risk tolerance goes to like 0
or 12. I mean,
risk
tolerance would be very high.
It's like you forget the instant you get behind a wheel, you forget that risk exists.
That does explain many of Will's behaviors.
Yep. We need to get a sign, a children at play sign for you guys.
We should put
on the Chang. Wait, actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea for merch either. A picture of the Chang Li with like that just says
children at play.
Or a picture of like your two faces.
Yeah, that would be
on the children at play. You know, it's like two children running, and then it's just our faces photoshopped on.
Like that sign, the little triangular sign.
Yeah.
But actually, for like a larger audience, that's not a bad idea for merch though. Like it just says like caution children at play, but it's like a picture of like a full-grown adult on a dirt bike or something.
Doing a
wheelie, doing a dirt bike doing a wheelie. Caution children at play.
Wow,
we're coming up with ideas.
I'm gonna send that one to the graphics designers right after this podcast.
So the funny thing about you guys picking up that go-kart too is I was like, hey, could I get a ride up to Grindard tomorrow? I got to drop my car off for an alignment. And you picked me up in the Ute with that go-kart.
Yeah.
And the guys at the tire store were like, oh, you getting a ride, whatever. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's almost here. And then you pull in and everyone in the store was like, like, what the devil is that?
And the turbo needs to be cleared out every once in a while, especially if you're driving slow and it doesn't really have a horn. So when I pulled into the parking lot, I was like really letting the boost rip because I had to clear her throat.
There was a little black smoke. My favorite feature, though, was the puddle of water in the seat, and I just sat right down like, oh, no.
That cab is not sealed at all. It was so cold.
Yep. Yeah, that thing's not exactly quiet or clean. The turbo is like half an inch above the oil pan, so like the turbo drain to the oil pan.
Yeah, like if you let it sit after it's been running and the oil kind of goes in there and you let it sit for a while, it kicks out.
The first startup is always like
it's just a cloud of smoke because the oil just pools in the turbo.
Yeah.
When you're running and driving, it drains okay. There's like enough flow to keep it going.
And the exit and turbo is on the passenger side.
Yep.
So if you're drifting counterclockwise, the oil just like comes out of the exhaust like a diesel. It's just like
it also has no muffler and the exhaust pipe is about 2 feet long.
Yeah.
So. Well, it does have a muffler. Turbos are mufflers.
We took it to the car wash before we went and we were like, oh yes, let's scrub off all the turbo smudge because it's a white car.
Yep. Well, the turbo smudge is the best part.
We wanted to see how much we could accumulate driving to pick it up.
Yeah.
So we had the brush, we did the pressurized soap, like full strength, not going anywhere. That door's going to be black.
1,000 miles of gambler turbo smoke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
That's the most reliable turboed vehicle.
It is actually the only thing we've ever turboed that hasn't blown up.
How much was that eBay turbo kit? It was like the cheapest one. It was like $600.
I want to say the turbo kit was $700. But then we did buy some other stuff too. We bought like the tuned ECU and injectors and stuff was like $1,200, I think. So that it could actually and that's why it actually works because we didn't try to tune it. We just bought it's a stock ECU, but it's a company that tunes it. So you just send them like what your specs are or whatever, and then they send you an ECU and injectors. So like that combo was like, but still, I mean, that's $2,000 for a functional turbo kit. It's still quite cheap.
That's the problem with the kind of things that Will and I want to turbo, these small carbureted engines that come on these like swindly toys. They're so hard. Like, and then if you switch it, because I even found this carburetor swapped fuel injector kit thing. And then, because I was looking, I'm like, all right, so 250 cc's single cylinder or less, what is on YouTube?
Yeah.
And the only thing I could find where the turbo like properly spooled and like could have made boost was our Mustang video,
which only did that once.
Yeah.
It didn't work again.
But there's these huge series of like, I found this one, these guys with this go-kart, it really looked like they were going to do it. They did like all the modifications to like a Predator 212, and they did the fuel injected swap for the carburetor, and they had a tuner with a computer, and they still couldn't get it to make boost.
Well,
they got it to kind of spool, but not like we did. And it's like, it's so hard with these small engines.
I mean, a large part of it is just there's not turbos made that are small enough, and even the small one, a single cylinder engine doesn't work well for turboing. It's possible, and they do make them work. Like there are snow bikes that are turboed, but a big part of the issue is just that the like with only one cylinder, the exhaust pulses are pretty far apart, relatively speaking, and it's a tiny engine. So it's like
that's not even.
It's just well, from what I understand, one of the big secrets to that is just a large plenum, which is what it's just a big volume of air chamber somewhere in the intake tract, because then it can build boost and store it. Because the other thing is like the amount of boost that it's building versus what it uses. It's like using it as fast as it's. I think anyway. This is all very loose understanding of it, but like. Because you only have the one cylinder, there's not another cylinder firing when that cylinder is pulling the air in.
So it's pulsating the whole time.
Yeah, it's just like pulsing high and low pressure back and forth, and it's not actually building boost. So like one of the ways I've heard to make it work is to build a box around your carburetor that is also a plenum. So the whole carburetor is inside of a pressurized box, and that way you get around some of the difficulties of like tuning a carburetor to work with boost, because then the entire carburetor just doesn't know. No, I mean they're not smart, but
and then we
it doesn't know that
NOS into there too.
Yeah, probably. Well, I think you'd probably want the NOS to be after that because because then otherwise it'd be kind of uncontrolled. But anyway, that's one of the ways that I've heard. I've never tried to do it or seen one in person, but that's one of the ways I've heard that you can get it to work is just build a big box, an airtight box around your carburetor, so that all of it's equal pressure inside and outside of the carburetor, or not equal.
Is that how like relative. The pro snow bike?
I honestly don't know. Well, those are all fuel injected too. So.
Oh yeah.